Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I was asked to share a little bit about accepting that all things come from God, whether they are the joys or the sorrows in our life, understanding that everything is a gift of grace to help us grow and expand spiritually. I remember a quote or a saying that Swami Kriyananda used that was that all true expressions of gratitude are not spoken outwardly, but felt inwardly in our hearts. And as we learn more and more that everything in our life is perfect, divinely placed there for our own benefit by God, we can experience that inward joy and gratitude more and more profoundly and deeply. So I think it was expected that I would approach this fairly seriously this morning, but I'm actually going to be sharing a story about cheesecake. And this is a very personal story in my life, but I think it's a beautiful example of how God is in every moment of my life. And what happened was when I first found Ananda, I was so overjoyed. The teachings of this path were resonating within, and they felt so wonderful. And I knew that I had finally found my home. And there were people within Ananda that were being so generous. They were opening their hearts to me and sharing so much and helping me understand the changes that were taking place within myself. And I wanted to thank them. So I baked them a cheesecake. But this cheesecake has a history to it. It's been in my family for generations. My grandmother had it and she passed it to my mom, and my mom passed it to me. But unfortunately, with each successive passing from generation to generation, it came with the explicit instructions not to share the recipe outside of our family. It was a very unfortunate, an immature spiritual perspective that we are separate, that we're not all one. And it was a lack of understanding of the beauty of the oneness of everything in the universe. So I baked this cheesecake and I delivered it down to the Los Angeles ashram one day, and I think there were some visiting Naya Swamis from out of town and others that lived in the home, and I left the cheesecake and went home. And that evening, I received an email from the LA ashram asking if I would please share the recipe. And very embarrassingly, in retrospect, I said, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And I explained to them the history of this and how it had been passed from generation to generation, and the request not to share it, which I had abided by at this point for decades. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. So a little while later, I received a second email from them, which said, we understand, which I think meant they understood and clearly saw the ego attachment, but might you be willing to release from the confines of your heart the teachings of this recipe, just like the teachings of this path are being released to you by Babaji? And that was a profound moment. That moment changed my life. I forever forward from that moment have had a different association with attachments. God, it's not that I was changing myself. God was working within me in that moment. It was a profound difference that I felt, not just in association with this, silly little cheesecake recipe, but forever going forward from that moment on, I have relinquished to a very large degree attachments, because he placed within me in that moment an understanding of the oneness of all and the beauty of acknowledging and not feeling separate, and unconditional compassion for all. And so I knew in that moment that it was important for me to finish this understanding within my heart, to complete the circle, that I really wanted to give them this recipe. And so I wrote it out longhand on a piece of paper, and I included in my letter to them an explanation of exactly what I was experiencing and how different I felt, how I was being changed from within, and how grateful I was for their guidance and for this deeper lesson from God within me. But the lesson wasn't complete. I knew that to really bring it full circle, I had to share this with my children, because they too grew up with this recipe They've had it in their lives since they were babies, and they've cooked it for their own friends. They're adults now and they're out in the world, and they often give it as gifts, but they also were told to keep this within the family. And so I wrote them each a letter, and in it I shared with them this exact story. And I told them the beauty of all I was receiving, how much joy I felt in understanding the oneness, that we're all one, that nothing makes us separate or special. And I told them that this is yours now. Please do with it what you want. You can choose to share it or you can choose to keep it. But the deeper lesson in all of this, and what I was asked to talk about today, was the beauty of recognizing God as the giver of all things. He understands every one of us individually, everything about our long history of what we've experienced, where we stand in our spiritual journeys, and what our attachments are, and how we need to change ourselves to become more compassionate, more loving, less judgmental, and more like God Himself. And all we need to do is look for the lessons. Realize that everything is divinely provided in our life. Every moment, the challenges, the joys, is provided for us to learn and to grow. And all we need to do is open our hearts, calm our minds, calm our hearts, calm our breathing, calm our reactive process, and look for the lessons, and being willing to self-examine ourselves and to change from within. So my wish for everybody this Thanksgiving is that they feel that deep gratitude in their heart through the awareness that God is in every moment, the giver and the doer of all things.